Hello and welcome to Niche Snacks. Today we are going to be making some edits to the Mycotyrant deck that we built just a few weeks ago. I've played a couple games with it so far, and we've come up with a few things that can be taken out, I think. So I have a small pile of cards that I've already pulled out that we're going to go through, and I'm going to give my explanation for why I think they need to be cut, and kind of talk about a couple of the games that I had that I thought were interesting. So first of all, first thing I learned is if you make a YouTube video and detail your entire deck and then have all of your friends watch it, they know exactly what cards to counter or destroy when you cast them. Now, my playgroup's pretty smart. They would have figured this out, after the first time of me activating something. But they knew right away what things to counter and what things to take off the table. So that was kind of an interesting experience, having a playgroup that was already, prepared for the deck I was about to bring to the table. Second thing is, I think we have too many tapped lands. I just kind of got stuck or had a really slow start with only tapped lands in my hand, and I was unable to get that early explosive start, and I had to play catch up for most of the game. So I think we're going to up our land count, and we're also going to drop some of the tapped lands. But right now we're sitting at 32 lands, and I think I'm going to bump it up to 34, 35, somewhere in there. And we're going to pull out some of the tap lands and replace them. So that's what this pile of cards is here, stuff that I think we can add into the deck. And this is the pile of stuff that I'm not super satisfied with, so let's go through it. First, we have Izoni Thousand Eyes. When Izoni enters, she's going to create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token for each creature card in your graveyard. So that could either make 20 tokens or it can make 0 tokens. I think I had one game where Izoni kind of sat in my hand and didn't do much because my graveyard just kept getting shuffled every time I was doing something. Return of the Wild Speaker. This card is really good. Our commander is gonna be huge, but without our commander out, this guy doesn't do a whole lot. He can buff our 1/1s because they're non-humans, and it is an instant, so it's a bit of a combat trick. We can attack in and nobody blocks our 1/1s, and then you're like, just kidding, they're 4/4s now. So I mean, it does have potential. But I wanted it on the chopping block just because the draw part of it, which was the main focus of it, was not as relevant as I was hoping. Runescar Demon, it's a 7-drop. Yeah, I mean, I think that's my biggest complaint about it. It costs 7 mana. It is a 6/6 flyer. That part's nice. Tutoring is always good, but having the 7 mana to drop on this and then maybe cast the thing that I got, or having it get me out of a sticky situation where I need to tutor something up and then play it, having the 7 mana on top of the extra mana afterwards, it was just difficult. Kind of the same thing with Green Warden of Marasa. I kind of view things that return things out of your graveyard and things that tutor your library for stuff to be kind of in the same grouping of cards, especially in this deck where we're going to be milling ourselves a bunch. I mean, half our library is going to be in the graveyard anyway, for the most part. So, but I do like Green Warden. I think I'm going to stick it over with the Return of the Wild Speaker on the maybes. Deathrite Shaman. This one might seem kind of weird at first. It taps to exile a land from a graveyard to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. The main reason why I had this card in the deck was for mana. Our graveyard is probably going to be one of the only ones, especially early game, that has any kind of lands in it, unless you're playing with a group that has a bunch of fetches or something like that. But for the most part, this guy was not adding mana, and it actually ended up kind of screwing me over. I think I milled it early and somebody reanimated it out of my graveyard and was using it to mess with my graveyard. So I think I even mentioned that in the other video, where if somebody steals our Deathrite Shaman, they could use it to screw with us. So I think I'm going to cut it from there. Essence Warden. I never drew Essence Warden, but I also never had any game where I felt like I needed the extra life. Like, I was either going to lose or I was already winning, so the extra life kind of just felt like a win more. I never actually played this card at all, but with the games that I've played, I don't feel like it's something that we want, and we can put something better in this slot. Same thing with Worm Harvest. I never actually cast a Worm Harvest, but it definitely sat in my hand for a game or two. There were just other game actions that I wanted to take, kind of with the Izoni, what I was saying earlier. the deck wants to shuffle itself, right? It wants to shuffle the graveyard into the library. So our graveyard is actually a lot smaller most of the time than I was kind of anticipating as well. So, I mean, I never really sat there with like a 50 card graveyard for very long. It got shuffled long before that really happened. I pulled out all the instant and sorcery cards that essentially mill us and then give us a thing back. I think we want something more than a one-shot effect of, mill 5 cards, put a land into your hand. Something like that. I think Grizzly Salvage isn't a bad one. Grizzly Salvage and Commune with the Gods, I think, are the two good ones, really, out of this pile. These both only mill 3. The Witherbloom command is cool. It's got a lot of different modes, but it is a 2-mana command spell. So choosing 2 of the 4 your modes are pretty lackluster, especially for a commander. The one we're really interested in is the one that mills us for 3 cards, and then we return a land from our graveyard to our hand. That part's nice. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Like, sure, we can hit someone's mana rock. Not really worried about that too much. Giving a creature -3/-1, that's not killing anything relevant. Hell, it won't even kill the damn Deathrite Shaman. It's got 2 toughness. And then target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That, again, also kind of worthless. So I think that one's going to get cut. And we've got Roots of Wisdom. Mill 3 cards, then return a land or elf card from your graveyard to your hand if you can't draw a card. So, I mean, it replaces itself. Even if you can't return the thing, you get to draw a card, which also could be good. It's like Dredge, but only 3 cards for 2 mana. We've got better options. And then also in the same vein, the Satyr Wayfinder. When it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You can put a land from among them into your hand and put the rest into your graveyard. Puts the land into our hand, so it's not ramping us. It's just a one-shot effect on a 1/1 creature that doesn't do anything else. We're not blinking stuff. We're not flickering things. I'm not going to reanimate a Satyr Wayfinder, because why would I? If it gets shuffled back into my library, I might cast it again, but that's kind of the extent of it. And then we've got all of our lands that come into play tapped. For sure, the Colony Garden enters the battlefield tapped, and you create a 0/1 plant creature token, whatever. Mortuary Mire comes into play tapped. You can put a creature from your graveyard on top of your library. It's meh. It's not useful enough, and the problem is it's another tap land. So if we start the game with this guy and the Colony Garden, like, that's 2 tap lands, and they're both pretty ass at the beginning of the game. The Colony Garden's just ass, period. And then Lair of the Hydra. If you control 2 or more other lands, it enters the battlefield tapped. So to enter the battlefield untapped, it has to be either our first or second land drop of the whole game. And it's Commander, and we have 100 singletons, so that's not likely to happen. And then I've got Bojuka Bog, Barren Moor, and Tranquil Thicket. Bojuka Bog, when it enters the battlefield, you exile somebody's graveyard. It's also another tapped land that if it comes into play early, or it's in our opening hand, we're gonna have problems. And then we've got the 2 cycle lands. These are great for descending. You can cycle it, discard it, draw a card. So that'll be 1 descend off of that. And then if you've got something to dredge off the card draw, that also will trigger that descend, or trigger more descends and mill us some more cards. So I think these 2 I'm going to keep off to the side, and we might not cut them. Now we've got, let's see, 11, 12 cards to cut. 4 of them being lands. We need to replace the lands with lands. Make sure that we set aside some extra sleeves from this pile for more lands. So right now our land count is at 32, I believe. So we want to up that a little bit. So we took out 4 lands. We want to up our land count at least 2. I'm going to put 3 there. That'll leave 5 slots to add in other things. We still have this pile of stuff that we could potentially cut if we want to. I'm not wild about any of these cards, so let's see what we got. Here's my pile of stuff. Reanimate and Animate Dead. I felt like the deck could have used a couple reanimate spells. We didn't really have a whole lot in the beginning. Ayara, I think, is going to be really good. So that'll kind of it'll be another game ender-ish, kind of like Dreadhound and Sir Conrad. Our commander makes 1/1 black creatures. So this will trigger the Ayara, but without our commander, Ayara doesn't do a whole lot. So she's good. but she does require the commander to be in play, so she doesn't quite fill the same role as Sir Conrad or the Dreadhound, where they can kind of win on their own without the commander being in play. Cemetery Tampering is Hideaway 5, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you mill 3 cards, and if there's 20 or more cards in your graveyard, you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So it can get us a free spell, and it's going to mill us 3 on our upkeep every turn, no matter what. Sludge Titan, this card I was super stoked about. I had never seen this before. 6/6 for 6 with trample, so it's a regular Titan, and when it enters or when it attacks, you mill 5 cards, and you can put a creature and or land card from among the milled cards into your hand. That's a free mill 5 every turn. You can swing in with a 6/6 with trample at pretty much anybody and not have any problems. Head Shredder, when it attacks, you may mill 2 cards, and then whenever 1 or more lands are put into your graveyard from your library, you can put them onto the battlefield tapped. So those are 2 separate clauses. So all of the dredging and self-milling and all of that stuff that we're doing, it'll catch all of the lands and put them into play. It's kind of a pseudo ramp piece. It's also a vehicle. So crew 1 for a 5/5. We can crew it with one of our 1/1 tokens that the commander makes, and then beat in with a 5/5 and mill 2 when we do so. Dredger's Insight is whenever 1 or more artifact and or creatures leave your graveyard, you gain 1 life. Cool. I didn't read that correctly the first time. So it's whenever 1 or more artifacts or creatures leave your graveyard, you gain 1 life. So even if I shuffle my whole graveyard into my library and I've got 25 creatures in there, I'm still only going to gain 1 life because it's only 1 instance of things leaving the graveyard. It also says when this enchantment enters, you mill 4 cards. You can put an artifact, creature, or land from among the milled cards into your hand. Didn't read this card all the way. It is cool. It does kind of fit our theme, but I don't think it does enough. I'm going to cut it. Assassin's Trophy. Destroy target permanent and opponent controls. They can search their library for a basic land card and put it on the battlefield, then shuffle their library. Just a removal spell, 2 mana, instant removal spell, kill anything. You can go get a basic land, sure. Sylvan Library, more card draw. Hopefully everybody knows how Sylvan Library works. It's a pretty old card. And reading it doesn't always explain it correctly. So on your draw step, you're going to draw 2 additional cards. So you're going to draw 3 cards total. You can put 0, 1, or 2 of those cards back on top of your library. For each card that you don't put back on top of your library, you lose 4 life. Also, it's 3 card draws. So notably, if you dredge one of these card draws, you still have to put 2 cards back or you're going to lose life. It doesn't matter if you have only drawn 2 cards. If this is triggered at all and you draw any cards on your upkeep, you have to put back 2 cards or you're going to lose life. Even if there's something out like, say, a Narset that says you can only draw 1 card per turn, you draw the card with triggering the Sylvan Library and you put the 1 card back and then you lose 4 life. That's just how it works. It sucks. But if you have something to replace the draw, like Underrealm Lich, so it says if you would draw a card instead, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 to your hand, the rest into your graveyard. So that replaces your draw, and you never actually technically draw a card. So with Sylvan Library, you can do 3 draws with the Underrealm Lich, and it doesn't trigger the Sylvan Library because you never actually drew a card, but you still get to essentially get those 3 cards and then mill through 9, right? You get to look at 9 cards and put 3 of them into your hand. Victimize. It's another reanimate spell I thought might be good. We can sack off one of the tokens we've made with the Mycotyrant. Not really sure about it. I kind of like Animate Dead and Reanimate a little bit better. Maelstrom Pulse, another destroy something, hit a non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent. The only thing that kind of sucks is it's a sorcery. And then Scroll Rack. It helps us kind of sculpt our hand and the top of the library. So you pay 1, tap it. You can take any number of cards in your hand, exile them, and then you put any number or the equal number of cards from the top of your library into your hand, and then you put the cards that you exiled on top of your library. I don't believe it actually counts as drawing cards, so you can't dredge the thing away, or you can't dredge the draws. And then we've got our lands. So I know we said we're replacing them with lands that don't come into play tapped, but Mosswort Bridge is really good, and we will probably have enough creatures to make that happen. If we have the Mycotyrant and 5 1/1s, this guy's active, and that's pretty common. That'll happen. Firewood Lodge comes into play untapped. Hey, bonus. It can also untap an elf. So you can pay a green and tap it to untap target elf. It only taps for a colorless mana, which kind of sucks. Being able to untap an elf, we do have a lot of elves in the deck, notably Circle of Dreams Druid. Being able to untap with this is going to make us a lot of mana. City of Brass, it's going to ping us for damage when we use it, but I think it's probably worth it. Crystal Vein comes into play untapped, and you can tap it for a colorless mana, or you can tap it and sack it, so descend, and add 2 colorless mana, so it can ramp us a little bit if we need it to. Verdant Catacombs is a fetch. It'll get us that forest or swamp that we need, and then also descends us. Exotic Orchard, I'm not sold on this yet. I mean, we're playing black green. Those are they're all fairly popular colors, but I feel like we're gonna find out more times than not this is only going to tap for one color that we need and not both of them, or potentially even no colors that we need, which would kind of suck. Temple of Malady, it's a scry. The scry land comes into play tapped, and it scries this one. And then we've got the other channel land, so there's already a Boseiju channel land in here, and now we've got Tekanuma, which will come into play untapped. You can channel it. It'll mill 3 cards, so that'll descend us, hopefully. And then you go and turn a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. So it doesn't have to be among the milled cards, just from your graveyard, period. And then this card I actually didn't even know existed. It's Spymaster's Vault. It'll enter tapped unless you control a swamp. So hopefully you will have a swamp. And then you can pay a black and tap it, and target creature you control connives X, where X is the number of creatures that died this turn. And conniving, you're going to draw X cards and then discard X cards and put a +1/+1 counter on the creature that connived for each non-land card discarded this way. So if we have a big blowout turn, we can sack all of our tokens to something like Carrion Feeder, or what's that stupid vampire? Not Blood Artist, Viscera. We could sack them all to Viscera and, have 30 connives. Then we're going to draw 30 cards and then discard 30 cards and then make more dudes. Now I think we're just going to add in the lands. So we want to do at least 4 lands. I really think that we need to put in the Verdant Catacombs, the City of Brass, the Exotic Orchard, and the Crystal Vein. Those will replace our 4 lands that came into play tapped with 4 lands that do not come into play tapped. And as far as adding more cards in, more lands in, at least 2. Spymaster's Vault and Takanuma, I think, because those will also have a lot more potential to not come into play tapped. So let's do that. That'll up our land count to 34. So now we've got 34 lands in the deck. 1 floater spot. We got 5 non-lands. Let's see. I do want to put at least 1 reanimate spell. So the animate dead for sure. The Sledge Titan 100% is going in the deck. Sylvan Library will give us more card draw. I'm not sold on the Hedge Shredder. So the reason why is it's going to take all the lands out that we mill, right? So we're going to have less lands in our library, which means less descend triggers in the library. I don't think it'll matter in the long run. I think having more mana available to us will be a little bit better than having more things to descend. I hope. Fingers crossed. And then the Cemetery Tampering, I think, is another good one. That'll give us a free spell. It'll mill us 3 cards every turn. Maybe the Assassin's Trophy, just having the Assassin's Trophy or the Maelstrom Pulse to have that immediate destruction of a permanent. I think the Assassin's Trophy is where we want to go. Instant speed is very nice. Also, one thing I've noticed with this deck, we're not really holding up lands. We're not holding up mana very much. We want to do most of the things on our turn because we only get the descend triggers on our turn. Like our commander only cares about how many times we've descended on our turn. At the end of our turn is when he triggers. One thing I also wanted to do is kind of go over some of the kind of cool little combos I found while I was playing a couple of games. So Skull Clamp and anything that dredges. So when you equip one of the 1/1 tokens that our commander makes and it dies, and then you draw 2 cards, you can dredge, I think, only one of the draws. I was playing that wrong when I was doing it. I was dredging both of the draws, but I think you can only dredge one draw. And then also with something like Wild Mongrel, so you can discard a card. What I was doing, and I think this is wrong actually now that I'm saying it, is I would Skull Clamp one of my 1/1 tokens. I would dredge the first draw with the Golgari Grave Troll, put it in my hand, and then before the second draw, I would discard it to the Wild Mongrel and then dredge it again with the second draw. I think that's wrong. I think you have to do both of the draws with Skull Clamp because it says when a equipped creature dies, you draw 2 cards. So it's one instance of 2 card drawing. So unless you had two dredge cards in your graveyard, you could dredge both of them. But I think you can actually only dredge the first draw with only one Golgari Grave Troll. But being able to Skull Clamp a token, dredge 6, draw a card, put the Golgari Grave Troll back in your hand, pitch it to the Wild Mongrel, and then Skull Clamp another token, dredge another 6, and draw a card. Great. It's so good. And then you're going to make a shitload of tokens at the end of that. Hoo-wee, this hand is terrible. So we got a Sledge Titan, that's cool, that's one of our new cards, but we've only got 2 lands, none of them make green. We have a triple and a double green pipped, and a double black pip, and no real ramp, so this hand sucks. We're gonna go ahead and just shove that on the bottom and try another 7. This hand is much better, actually. We've got 2 2-drop ramp. We've got 3 lands. We've got both of our colors, and we've got a Stitcher Supplier. So turn 2, we're going to play a ramp spell. Ooh, drawing an Ulamog. That's not that bad, though. It's fine. Turn 1, we are going to play probably the Takenuma. I want to keep the Boseiju in my hand. Boseiju is going to be better in hand than the Takenuma is. Then we're going to play a Grim Backwoods and the Golgari Signet. Then we'll untap, draw. This turn, didn't draw another land that comes into play untapped, so that's fine. We'll just play the Boseiju. Not a big deal. And we're going to tap these 2, and then we'll use the colorless mana to tap that. We're going to leave a black floating, play the Mycotyrant, and then the Stitcher Supplier. And then it'll mill 3 cards. We got us 3 descend triggers, and then when we're going to end our turn, we're going to make 3 dudes. 3 1/1s off the Mycotyrant. Oops. Untap, keep draw. So from here, we do have a way to sack the Stitcher Supplier with the Grim Backwoods, but we need a little bit more mana. We just drew this Insidious Roots, so we could play it. Yeah, I mean, if we play the Insidious Roots, that lets our tokens tap for a mana of any color, so we've got access to 4 mana right here, and then we can use that to sacrifice the Stitcher Supplier, and we'll draw a card. And so this is another kind of weird ruling thing, but paying the mana, tapping the land, and sacrificing the creature are all part of the cost. So sacrificing this Stitcher Supplier is part of the cost of activating the card. So we're going to do this Stitcher Supplier first before the card draw even goes on to the stack. So there's 3 descends on top of the one that was already there. And then we'll draw for that. Ooh, we got a Jihara, which also lets our tokens tap for mana. I think we're just going to play this Tranquil Thicket. We don't really need it to draw at this point. And then we'll end our turn. We'll descend. We did 4, so we're going to have 7 dudes total. Draw for the turn. At this point, I think our loop is going to be playing the Phyrexian Reclamation and then paying the 2 mana and the 2 life to return the Stitcher Supplier to our hand, and then recasting the Stitcher Supplier, milling 3 more cards. And we have access to enough black mana. That takes a lot of black mana to do that, so we have to cast the Phyrexian Reclamation, pay for it, and cast the Stitcher Supplier. That's 4 mana total, 3 of it being black. But with the Insidious Roots, our duders can tap for 1 mana of any color. But if we had like Jihara in play, it only lets them tap for green mana. And I'm pretty sure the Badger also only lets them tap for green mana. So having the Insidious Roots is really helping us out here because it's giving us access to a bunch of extra black mana that we wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, I mean, from this point on, I think the Phyrexian Reclamation is really going to be doing the bulk of the work because it's going to be reanimating the Stitcher Supplier. We can continue to sack it to the Grim Backwoods, to draw more cards and mill more cards and descend more cards. Really low on mana, but high on potential. That's a pretty risky keep. I say we do it because we're only goldfishing, and let's just kind of see how it plays out. First card. Oh man, we were really hoping for a land there. We'll play the Bayou and the Finhorn Elves. That's 2 mana on the next turn. Even if we don't see a land, we're still going to get the Sylvan Library, but come on, land. Whoa, look at that. City of Brass. Now, here's the thing. We could play the Mycotyrant, but we have no way to descend currently. We're going to cast the Sylvan Library and try to look at some extra cards next turn. So let's untap, upkeep, and we'll draw 2-3 cards. We got a land. We're definitely keeping that. Honestly, I think we keep all of this. This looks phenomenal. I mean, we got another Ramper. We got a Phyrexian Arena, which is going to draw us more cards. I think we just take the 8. That's fine. We'll take the 8. Play Command Tower and the Phyrexian Arena. Do we want to play the Phyrexian Arena? I think so. Yeah. Let's play the Phyrexian Arena. I was considering playing the Sanctum Weaver over the Phyrexian Arena for more mana, but I really don't think we need it right now. Well, I mean, we could. Then we can rush out the Tendershoot Dryad on turn 4, which wouldn't be bad. And we don't have another land to play, so we're definitely not going to play it off the land. Yeah, actually, I want to take that back. Let's play the Sanctum Weaver. Let's get a little more mana out, and it'll add more mana once we play the Phyrexian Arena as well. So let's untap, draw for our 4th turn. We didn't get another land. Oh wait, we got to do the Phyrexian or the Sylvan Library. We did get a land, so we're definitely taking the land. And this is a scenario where we almost don't want to take the 8. We do need to be a little bit careful with that. Taking a bunch of extra damage when we don't really need to, and we'll draw the Dreadhound next turn anyway. So we'll put it back like that. We're going to play our land for the turn, which is the Takenuma. And now we've got access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So we've got 6 mana. Let's go ahead and play the Tendershoot Dryad. And then we're going to pass the turn. For every upkeep, it's going to make us a 1/1 Saproling, including our own upkeep. So we'll have 4 when it gets back to our turn. If, nobody killed it, which is pretty likely that somebody will. And then we're going to Sylvan Library again. So we already knew about the Dreadhound and the Path of Discovery. Got a Tranquil Thicket there. Honestly, don't really care about any of these cards right now, but I think we take the Dreadhound just in case. We can put these back. We don't really want to pay the 8 life for them. We'll actually get rid of these with the Dreadhound if we cast it, because it'll mill us 3 cards and we'll get rid of these ones and we won't have to look at them anymore. So that part's nice. And we do have Jihara, so these guys can tap for mana except for the one that we created on our turn. We go black, black, and a green, and we'll cast Phyrexian Arena. We can actually tap this guy for 3. I messed that up last turn. He could have tapped for 2 mana, not 1. Because he adds X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control, and I had 2, because he's also an enchantment creature. Now I have 3, so we can tap for 3 mana. So we have access to 5 total right now. But if we do this for 3, play the Jihara, you have 3, 4, 5. No, we're still stuck at 5 that way. I was trying to come up with another way to get the Dreadhound out this turn and also play the Phyrexian Arena, and I'm not sure that we can. We can do 3 green for Jihara, cast that, and then we'll do a black and tap 2 to play Mycotyrant. Now we didn't descend this turn at all, but that's okay. I think we're gonna start really descending next turn. So we'll untap, upkeep. We're gonna draw a card and lose a life. Ooh, look at that. Got a Tranquil Thicket. And then with the Sylvan Library, we will draw 3 cards. But let's keep the woodland cemetery, and we'll put these two back. Oh, and then we'll go up to 8 saprolines. And also don't forget, these are saprolines, so that buffs our Mycotyrant. So he gets power toughness equal to the number of fungi and or saprolines that we control. So he himself is a fungi, and then there's 8 saprolines, so he's a 9/9 right now. We'll play our woodland cemetery as a land for the turn, and then I think we cast the Dreadhound. Do 3, and then 4, 5, 6 to play their Dreadhound, and that's going to mill us for 3 cards. That'll be 3 descends as 3 permanents. None of them are creatures, so we won't trigger the Dreadhound at all. I think I'm also going to cycle the Tranquil Thicket and get another descend. Ooh, Bright Cat Badger. Man, we're getting all of the things that let us tap our dudes for mana, huh? All right, so we're going to swing with the Mycotyrant for sure. Attack there. There's nothing really in our graveyard we want back, so this Green Warden and Eternal Witness aren't doing much for us. We're going to end the turn. We're going to make 4 guys. We'll do one more turn. Let's see what else we can do. We'll go real nuts, because we haven't really set up an engine yet. So beginning of upkeep, we're going to draw an extra card. Ooh. Golgari Thug, that's what we want to see. And then we'll do the Sylvan Library. Got a Viserys here, an Exotic Orchard, and a Shriek Maw. So we don't have a land to play this turn, so taking the Exotic Orchard will be good. We don't have a way to stick the Golgari Thug in the graveyard, but we do have a Viserys here, so we could cast both of them on this next turn and sack the Golgari Thug, and then start to use that to dredge. And it'll put it, well, I mean, we can just keep sacking it to the Viserys here every turn to dredge 4 every time we need to. But we're just going to eat the 8 because this is a goldfish, and we'll keep the Shriek Maw as well. Do that, play the Viserys here, then we'll play the Golgari Thug, sack it to the Viserys here to scry 1. This is an animate dead, which we don't really have anything worth animating right now. We'll play our land for the turn, but I guess we keep the animate dead there. And oh yeah, because it's going to get dredged anyway on our next card draw. Oh, we can get it back with like Eternal Witness or Green Warden potentially as well. So yeah, I mean, I think that's it. Oh yeah, and we have some Dreadhound triggers because we can sack creatures to the Viserys here. So we have, you know, a buttload of tokens we can sack off if we need to. Somebody tries exiling one of our things, we can respond because it's all instant speed. So I went through the deck and pulled out all the cards that we just added in, and I realized we added in an Exotic Orchard when there was already an Exotic Orchard. So we're going to add in a Temple of Malady instead, which it's another tapped land, but it makes both of our colors, which is important, and it scries 1, so we get to see an extra card. So basically like half a card, I believe. That's it. I just wanted to make that quick little edit before the end of the video. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for this video. I hope you liked the edits I made. Please rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But most importantly, if you enjoyed the video, show a friend. Tell your friends about it. Make them watch. Hold their eyes open, Clockwork Orange style. Just make sure they see it. All right. Thanks, and have a good day. Bye.